Hello and welcome. Welcome to the MBLEX Review Course Live class. Woohoo, you made it! You made it. Yeah, nice work. My name is Jodi Scholes. I'm your instructor for the MBLEX Review course. Today we're talking about ethics, boundaries, laws, and regulations. Now, when we study for the MBLEX, most of us think about anatomy, physiology, pathology, client assessment, benefits of massage. Well, there's two big categories. One of those categories is guidelines to a professional practice. The second category is ethics, boundaries, laws, and regulations. Between those two categories, you have 31 questions. 31 questions on your MBLEX have nothing to do with the body. And it has to do with your client, but it has to do with ethics. And so this class we could do in three parts. The first part is I give you a test taking strategy. The second part is our learning. We cover content that you will want to know to have a professional practice, but also content that is highly likely to be on your MBLEX. Now, we don't know what's on the MBLEX, but these are things that have been on the MBLEX in the past. And so we familiarize you with the content. And then the third part is dissecting questions. And over the last few years, we have found that you guys, the attendees, love, the massage school graduates, love to dissect questions. So we have 10 questions now to dissect at the end of class. All of these questions will be related directly to the content that we're going to cover. And that's the same way it works in your online, in the online learning center. You have your practice exams, which are 100 questions, but your lectures and quizzes, the quiz is only 25 questions. Yes, and it's on all the material you just listened to in the lecture. So that's how we model this class as well. So let's begin with our test taking strategy for today. Our test taking strategy is to control your breathing. Are you in touch with your breathing? Is that something you think about every now and then? Just, am I breathing quickly? Let's tune into our breath right now. Are you breathing a short, shallow breath? Or are you breathing a bigger belly breath? So breathe in one intentional breath through the nose. Hold it. Sip in a little more. Hold it. And exhale. Let's do that one more time. We're going to take a big breath in. Let your chest expand. If you want your belly to expand, fabulous. When we get a full breath in, we're going to sip a little bit more air in. We're going to hold it, and then we're going to exhale. So let's do it together. Breathe that breath in. Hold it. Sip in a little more. Little more. Hold it. And exhale it out. I can just feel your body right now. You just got a shot of oxygen into your system. When we breathe in and we hold, we give our body access to more oxygen. Next week, we're going to be talking about the anatomy and the physiology of the respiratory system. So you'll hear a little bit more about that. We're also talking about the digestive system. But when we hold that air in, we give our lungs a chance to provide more oxygen to our body. With more oxygen, our brains are more efficient. And so in yoga and in meditation, there's a thing called the box breath. So like four sides of a box. And you breathe in to the count of four, hold to the count of four, exhale to the count of four. What I love about breathing, whether you decide to make it two, 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 or four, 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 what I love about breathing is the oxygen that enters your brain. And the other thing I love about breathing, it interrupts your anxiety. It interrupts your thought pattern. If you are down the rabbit hole on, oh my gosh, is it A or C, A or C? That breath interrupts that cycle and brings you back to the present moment. And so those are two great things about breathing. And breathing is one of the only things you can bring into the testing room. They don't let you have anything in there. You can't have a pen, you can't have paper. They might give you a whiteboard with a marker, but you can bring your breath. And if you start to feel a certain kind of way, or maybe even at minute 15, or when at minute or an hour 30 left, go ahead and breathe. Just breathe. You know how some news stations do weather on the tens? You could breathe on the tens. You could breathe on the quarters, on the 15s. Give yourself the opportunity to breathe. Yeah. Let's do one more. We're going to take a big breath in. We're not going to count. We're just going to hold, and then we're going to exhale. And then we're going to move into our learning. Big breath in. Hold it. A little more. Can you get a little more in? A little more. Hold it and exhale. Yeah. Your body, your heart, your lungs is saying, thank you. Thank you for a little bit more oxygen. Let's move into our lesson for today. Remembering that at any point during this lesson, if you feel sleepy, if you feel tired, if you feel hungry, just breathe. Use that as a trigger to go ahead and breathe. Welcome to the MBLEX review course on ethics, boundaries, laws, and regulations. How do we know? How do myself, Tara, the team, how do we know what to put into your lessons for today? How do we know what you need to study? Well, we base it on a couple of things. First of all, is this important? Are ethics, boundaries, laws, and regulations even important? Well, yeah, it is. Because professional therapists rebook their clients. Ethical therapists rebook their clients. They build relationships with their clients. And the other part of ethics is that it's going to be 16 questions on your MBLEX. As I mentioned earlier, there are two categories: ethics, guidelines to a professional practice. Those two categories make up 31 questions on your MBLEX. Yeah. So yeah, it's important. How else do we know what to put in this lesson? We know because the Federation of State Massage Therapy Boards gives us a content outline. Here's what's on that content outline. We need to know the definition of ethical behavior. We need to be able to explain professional boundaries. We need to understand code of ethics violations. We need to understand what's meant by the therapeutic relationship. We need to be able to define dual relationships. We need to understand all of these categories, A through K. We need to understand massage and bodywork related laws, scope of practice versus standards of practice. Each of these. This is on the outline. Additionally, we use this outline and pull from the content, which is called ELAP. It's probably the worst name ever, but it's called the Entry Level Assessment Program. is what it's called. Entry level assessment program. It doesn't even have the word massage in it. I know. But what this is and why it's exciting is because the most populated organizations, AMTA, ABMP, NCBTMB, FSMTB, the Alliance for Massage Therapy Education, the Massage Therapy Foundation, but those seven organizations came together over 3.5 years and decided what should be in massage school. What should massage students learn? They came up with 625 hours and then published it for free. You can go find this. Just type in ELAP massage and you'll see the 300 plus pages of massage school curriculum. So we take that curriculum and the federation's content outline and match them. So, for example, ELAP says they'll massage graduates will demonstrate the knowledge of positive therapeutic relationships. They'll demonstrate effective language to redirect transference. Key terms that come, and when I give you key terms in these lessons, it comes from this educational blueprint. So a few key terms are right in there: therapeutic relationship, confidentiality, the ethical professional touch, therapeutic intent, client-centered session, power differential. That's where all this comes from. Other key terms: informed consent, dual relationship. This is what we're going to be covering today. We're going to get to our outline: transference, countertransference, scope and standard. And then one other thing we add to class that makes it unique every time is I debrief. After you pass your MBLEX, you and I have a conversation. We debrief and we say, okay, how was it for you? Oh my gosh, it was so hard. We take that debrief. Okay, did you have either 3 or 4 answers? By the way, um, the majority of questions had 3 answers this week. But in any case, not sure if it's going to be for every state, but 80% of her questions were only 3 answers. Uh, and also, she said a lot of tax questions, a lot of business questions, a lot of legal form questions. I did not hear the questions, but I know what you need to know about taxes, about legal entities, about legal forms. We're covering those today as well. All right, so let's get to it. Here's our topics for today. We have 9. Before we go into dissecting our questions, this is based on the ELAP curriculum, the Federation's outline, and feedback from your massage school colleagues on what is on the test. Here's what we'll cover. Starting with the therapeutic relationship. And there are 5 primary characteristics of a therapeutic relationship. The session is client-centered. Now and then on the MBLEX, we see questions that say, how do you design your massage treatment? How do you decide what to do? Because boing, 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 alert, alert, alert. You're not doing the same thing every time. You can have a core. I mean, I have a core of what I do every time. Pretty much I do a full body session every time, unless they're looking for spot work, unless they're looking for some specific work. Unless my client says, hey, my shoulders and neck have really been a problem. That happened earlier this week. And we brought out the cups. I brought out the cups. We did a focused session, full body, but we had 90 minutes. And so I spent extra time in her area of concern. That is client-centered. The client gives us feedback, and we design a treatment plan according to what the client has told us. And oh, by the way, sometime in your career as a massage therapist, you will start to understand that, hey, if the shoulders are tight, I might need to work around the clavicle. If the trapezius is tight, I might want to check and see If the front, above and below the clavicle is tight, we do need to address the area of the body that is the concern for the client. Even if you start to know, oh, well, you have pain in your wrist, but it's really from your shoulder. Your client doesn't care. Your client has said they have wrist pain. A client-centered session addresses the primary concern directly. Additionally, other areas that might be involved. That's part of a therapeutic relationship. The therapist seeks to decrease the balance of the power differential. We'll talk about the power differential here shortly. The client and therapist agree to clear session goals. That means you've actually discussed this with your client. The therapist has a clear, positive, therapeutic intent. Clear, positive, therapeutic intent. And the therapist provides ethical, professional touch. This is the foundation of a therapeutic relationship. A healthy, professional, therapeutic relationship. I mentioned power differential. Power differentials happen in the classroom and in the treatment room. Massage therapists are perceived to be experts about the body. The likelihood is you're going to know a lot more than your client knows about the body. You're perceived as an authority. What other authority figures can you think of? How about police? How about firemen? How about a judge? They are perceived to have more authority in certain situations. We are perceived, massage therapists are perceived to have more authority in the treatment room. Because of that, we have a power differential. And we seek to balance that power differential. Our intention is to balance that power differential by communicating with our client. So how do we do that? We mentioned that the power differential exists in the classroom. Sometimes teachers jump right in there and interact. Children are still told they need to listen to their teacher. They're older, they're wiser. Students look up to their teachers. And therefore, the teacher respects that power differential. But in the treatment room, how do we do this? Guess we'll come back to that a little bit later. Let's see. Okay. I've woven it into informed consent, client-centered session, confidentiality. So how do we balance that power differential? We ask the client questions. And we ask that client questions way before they get on the treatment table. By the way, your client, when they're receiving a massage, are on a massage table or a treatment table. Lately, I've been hearing people call it a bed. It is not a bed. Beds are where you sleep. Beds are where you have sex. It is not a bed. In the United States, we call it a treatment table or a massage table. You're going to ask your client to get on the table. Keeps it more professional. So how do we have the opportunity? When do we have the opportunity to ask the client questions? Let's take a look. How about this health intake form? There are many free health intake forms online. All you need to do is Google it, massage health intake form. If you have any trouble finding one you like, reach out via direct message. We'll help you find one. Every client on their first visit fills out a health intake form. Yeah. And we review it. We review it with them. Just going to take a peek into the chat. Very good. Glad you guys are communicating with each other. That's awesome. The other way that we communicate with clients is verbal consent. We have the health intake sheet that is written consent. We also have verbal consent. Both are considered under the category of informed consent. And just like it sounds, informed consent is that you inform your client and they give you consent. So they do that through the health intake sheet. And then as you proceed through the session, you may find you need to work an area you haven't discussed. What could that area be? Yes, the glutes, the butt. If you have not asked permission, you need to let them know verbal consent. Hey, is it okay if I work in this area? I don't care if you've been working with this client for 10 years. We still need to let them know, hey, is it okay if I work in this area today? We need to ask. And they need to make at least a grunt. They need to make a noise. They need to say something. Yes or no. You may come to a time in your practice where you are really comfortable working abdominals. You've learned how to drape. You've learned how to communicate with the client about the purpose of working abdominals. But every time you ask permission. Hey, I feel like I want to work your abdominal region today. Is that cool with you? Awesome. And if they've had it before, they're like, oh, sure, I love that. You'd be surprised how many people tell you they love having their abdominal area worked. You need to know how to drape the chest, securely drape. It'll come as no surprise to you that I even drape men when I work the abdomen. I like the practice and I like to keep them warm. But you let them know. So you've learned how to drape, to securely drape, and you've gotten verbal consent. If you didn't learn how to drape the chest, it's with a big towel. Take a class. But you'll get informed consent in two ways, written and verbal. The client-centered session means that we leave our opinions at the door. We're getting feedback from the clients. Guys, gals, I know you love to create an environment where the client doesn't say anything. They go off to their happy place. Asking questions is important during the session, even if it's just a question about pressure. I like the Goldilocks question. Would you like a little more pressure, a little less, or is this about right? It's great feedback. You would be surprised how many times people will say, I'd like a little more in that area. No, no, that's just right. By asking that pressure question during your session, you're developing rapport, you're developing trust, you're assuring the client it's about the client, client-centered session, and you're reinforcing in that client's mind they are getting the pressure they want. How cool is that? Yeah. All right. During your session, you may find that the client is quiet. They may make noises. They may sigh, or they may talk the whole time. They may be, the lovely mother of, toddlers and don't have a lot of adult conversation. So they may want to chatter. But let's just recognize that the amount of talking or the amount of not talking is the dance that we do with our clients. See if it triggers you. Do you ever just roll your eyes and be like, I wish they'd just be quiet? Maybe they're talking about religion. Maybe they're talking about politics. Don't participate. Redirect. That is what our massage school curriculum has taught us to do, is to be comfortable with redirecting a conversation to a more positive topic. Our role as licensed massage therapist is to show up with compassion, kindness, and know that the treatment room is not the place for religion and political conversations. It's not. Learn how to gently redirect those conversations back to their body, back to them. So client-centered sessions maintain healthy boundaries while addressing the client's concerns. Look at this nice treatment room. When you go to work, are you going to wear scrubs? You don't have to, but it does look professional, doesn't it? Personally, I wear all black. This is about professionalism. The client walking into this treatment room, well, I would be like, what's up with the sheets? But they at least are looking at my records, right? All right, that's client-centered sessions. Here are some ideas that I thought were earlier in our presentation about balancing the power differential. It's again coming back to that client-centered session. So you ask questions, you give the client choices. So of course you're going to ask about the health intake sheet and you listen to what that client says. But what if you were to say, hey, do you want oil or cream today? Do you have any preference on music? Any areas you'd like me to focus on? Empowering the client. Checking in during the session. More pressure, less pressure, on a scale of 1 to 10. Bet you learn that in massage school. How are you experiencing the pressure? With 1 being very light pressure, 10 being very deep. How are you experiencing this? Are you a comfortable temperature? If you have a heated table, heated mattress pad on your table, why not ask, hey, are you a comfortable temperature? Do you always turn on the heat? I've gone into treatment rooms where they always set it to 10. And I'm like, could you cut that back a little, please? I feel like I'm being poached. Ask the question. It's a simple yes or no answer, something you can control. Again, balancing that power differential. So when you know you've got that healthy power differential, clients take a role in planning, but they don't take control. They share their needs. They are willing to say, oh, that's a lot, or you hear it. In fact, I saw some body language this week from a client when I was working their Terry's Minor. I said, wow, is that tender? Oh, yeah, that's very tender. Would you like me to just skip it? Yes, I would. Glad I asked the question because I was about to treat it. I was about to massage it. She's like, no, it's too tender. Okay, cool. When clients use their voice, when they give you feedback, they are using their personal power. They're taking more personal responsibility for their health. So, reminder, we don't fix anybody. We're not there to fix them. That's when clients give away their power and rely only on you. And let me tell you, that's no fun because that's not who you're here to be. You're here to empower your clients. Yeah. And again, we don't fix anybody. We create an environment where the body heals itself. Let me say that again. We don't heal anybody. We don't fix anybody. We create an environment where the body heals itself. It's true. Back to our topics for today. We've gone through our client-centered session. We've gone through our informed consent. We're now on some confidentiality, and we're going to look at HIPAA. Oh, we're going to look at these definitions as well. Dual relationships. All right, so we're going to talk about confidentiality, HIPAA, and we're going to define these terms. Dual relationships. Okay, what is it? Dual relationships is when you know the person prior to giving them a massage. You know them from social situations, you know them um, because they work at a restaurant you go to or the gym. Could be they're a family member. They're your sister, your mother, your brother, their family. Uh, Maybe they're business colleagues. Maybe they belong to the chamber. Maybe they're your website guy. Mhm. Any relationship outside the therapeutic relationship is considered a dual relationship. And when there's more than one, it's called multidimensional. Multidimensional simply means you have more than one role. So they are a family member, mm, say they're your brother-in-law. Well, then you know them from your sister's point of view, your point of view, your mother knows them, and so there's a multi-dimensional. You know them in many different ways. Okay, so for example, this is a client isn't really new. She's my mom's friend, but I go to book club with her, or she goes to book club with my sister-in-law. She knows my brother through her dog walking business, and we also belong to the same gym. Woo! 1 degree of separation before she was a client, right? But when she comes in to see you, or you go to see her in her home, the client relationship is first. Mhm. The client relationship is first, even when there's it should say multi roles, right? But multi-dimensional. Okay. Transference. Bet on the Emblex for sure. Transference is when your client is reminded of something when they come in to see you. They're reminded of something normally from their childhood, and they apply that to you, applying it to you. So you look like their aunt, or you look like their mother, or you look like their uncle. And they had certain feelings about their uncle. And those feelings start to transfer from the client to you. So in this case, it's from the client to you, compared to countertransference. Countertransference is when the massage therapist starts to feel a certain feeling toward a client. So, as it says, a massage therapist's unresolved feelings or issues unconsciously transferred to the client. So the client comes in and they look like your uncle. And you're like, oh, that uncle, he rode a Harley Davidson motorcycle. I wonder if this guy rides a Harley. You have a certain feeling about it. That guy who came in as your client has nothing to do with your uncle. So let's recognize that counter transference. The therapist's feelings are being transferred onto that client. Now, this can sometimes happen with elderly clients as well. If you've ever cared for an aging person, there is a certain level of empathy. So just be careful in the treatment room that it's a healthy relationship with your client, not a codependent relationship with your client. Counter transference. Your feelings as a therapist being transferred onto your client. Another definition, boundary. What is a boundary? Well, as a mental health term, boundaries are used is a word used to describe the limit, the rule that you have established to feel safe. Your client has internal limits, internal safety that protects them. So boundaries say where it's okay to touch and where it's not okay to touch. With clients, we drape securely to create a safe boundary so that our clients can relax. And with each client, we're careful. We're careful to watch for body language. Body language that may indicate their boundaries are different than the traditional boundaries. We had in my multi-therapist practice, I had a practice just outside of Washington, D.C., and we had about 15 therapists working for me there. And routinely, we had one psychotherapist who would routinely refer clients to our practice. And the clients would normally be getting over some type of physical abuse. They'd be working through some type of violation of their boundaries. And he, the psychotherapist, would send his clients to help them work with someone who is safe and maintained boundaries. Yeah. Boundaries are very important. The importance of clear boundaries. If someone is to violate a boundary, if a massage therapist is to violate a boundary, there's, there's news all over the internet about therapists being arrested, especially in cross-gender massages. It's not more true for male therapists. It's not more true for female clients. It's important for every therapist, and it's important for every client. Secure draping gives them a non-verbal indicator that you are a professional and that you are creating safe boundaries. We mentioned that what happens if you have clients and you work at a busy office and then you go out to the grocery store and you run into a client. I remember going into a hardware store and I was walking down the aisle, determined I'm going to go get a key made, right? And walking down the aisle was a client. And I was on a mission. So I almost said, you know, hey, Brad, but I did not. I remembered confidentiality is part of our boundaries. Confidentiality that that client even gets massage. It only if the client initiates the contact are we to say hello. And we are not to say anything about how we know them. To our spouse or their spouse, our partner or their partner. If our partner says, "Hey, how do you know them?" "Oh, I know them. Yeah, they're a colleague." Blow it off. Keep it vague. We are not allowed to say anything. Think about it in terms of celebrities. There was a time in my career where I worked at a very popular concert hall in the DC area. And I was the massage therapist to the band, to the performers. I would get tickets and later I'd post pictures. They're like, oh my God, you went to that show? That's awesome. Cannot say a word about working on the band. Cannot say a word about working on the concert pianist, the classically trained ballerina. This is especially true for people who are influencers or who are famous. We don't get to say a word. And if you get that opportunity, remember they are a soul encased in a body that's just like you and me. Yeah, they're just like you and me. So Do your best. Do your professional best to, excuse me, don't be a fangirl. Don't be a fanboy. Don't be a jock sniffer. I worked with professional football, professional soccer, US track and field. They didn't need somebody running around asking for autographs. That is a boundary crossing and could be a boundary violation. Just keep your cool. It's part of our boundaries. Also, of course, show up as your best self, refrain from practicing massage under the influence of alcohol or drugs. And of course, if your client arrives and has been using recreational drugs, alcohol, excessively, you have the right to refuse the session. This is again about your boundaries, your therapeutic relationship. Yeah. I've mentioned two words, boundary crossing and boundary violation. Want to just clarify what those are for you. A boundary crossing is harmless. It is something that's not necessarily going to harm the client. If we think in terms of glute work, for every client, it's going to be different. Is that a boundary crossing or a boundary violation? Informed consent means it won't be a boundary crossing at all. However, boundary crossing is something that was a surprise to your client. And it is not intended to do any harm, so it's non-exploitive. And actually sometimes it's good for the therapy session. It's good. It's like all of a sudden if you start to softly compress a glute and your client stiffens up, there's going to be a conversation, right? There's going to be a few words exchanged. Hey, is it okay if I work in this area? No, I don't like it. That's sport. It supports your therapeutic session versus a boundary violation. A boundary violation is harmful or potentially harmful to the client and to your therapeutic relationship. It feels to the client, it feels like exploitation. If I do a soft fist on a glute, ask permission, hey, is it okay if I work in this area? They say no. I respect that boundary, I move on. If they never come back again, good possibility that was a boundary violation. So violation is harmful to the treatment, harmful to the patient, and it felt harmful to the patient, to the client. Versus the boundary crossing was a surprise to the client, but stimulated a conversation. Thomas Jefferson said, when you do a thing, act as if the whole world were watching. Now, Thomas Jefferson was one of the signers of the Declaration of Independence. So we're pretty sure this quote came from the 1700s. There was no internet. There were no cell phones. In Thomas Jefferson's time, was there? No. And yet still, his principle was whenever you do a thing, act as if the whole world is watching. Because the most important person in the world is watching, and that is you. You and your consciousness. Let's go over a quick boundary crossing or boundary violation conversation. I'm going to just take a do. Good. This is great feedback in the chat. Fantastic. So hopefully you can see this. Um, good. So Ms. V says, I'm going to ask before I touch. That's a great idea. You need to ask out loud. All right. So in these examples, do you think it's a boundary crossing or a boundary violation? Let's take a look. Hmm. Two people out to dinner having wine. Client and therapist out to dinner. Boundary crossing, boundary violation. Ding, 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 ding. Boundary violation. Yes. Thank you in the chat. Yes, violation. It is boundary violation. Yes, because this is personal time. You did not know this person prior to them becoming a client. Now, this also brings up an excellent point. The AMTA says that if you are attracted to your client, that they need to not be a client anymore. Yeah. So the best thing is for them to not be a client anymore if you decide that you would like to pursue a personal relationship with them. Now, the AMTA also says you should wait 6 months. Wait 6 months? This is could be the love of my life. I'm just telling you the rules. Okay? So, rules state if there is a mutual attraction between a client and a therapist, best practices is to wait 6 months before pursuing that personal relationship. Just telling you the rules. All right. Boundary crossing, boundary violation. It's a text message coming in, and the text message says, I've been thinking of you every second since you've left. Yikers. Who's sending that, the client or the therapist? Yipes. Yes, this is also a boundary violation. It actually doesn't matter who's sending the text, whether it's the therapist or the client. It's both a boundary violation. And if the client feels as though they need to send this type of text message, what type of boundaries were set in the treatment room? I don't know. I'm just saying, this is not a client problem. This is a therapist. I wouldn't say problem, but this is a therapist issue to resolve. Because if the client feels like they can send you this text message, there were not clear boundaries. Yeah, it's not about the client. It's about you. All right, back to our agenda for today because we've talked about a bunch of different things, but there are a few things that were extra on the MBLEX, especially as of late, that we wanted to cover with you. So let's take a look at legal entities as far as business structures uh, and some of the nitty-gritty about taxes. Yeah, very boring stuff. Sorry. The scope of practice. So our scope of practice is sometimes confused with our standard of practice. So the scope of practice is what the law tells us we are legally able to do. This differs from state to state because massage therapists in some states are allowed to do ear candling. Massage therapists are allowed to do hydrotherapy, hot and cold treatments. In other states, they're not allowed. So be clear what the scope of your legal practice is in your state for massage therapy. So in this picture, I'm showing someone looking through a scope that identifies where their ball is. And so it's the circle. The circle, okay, right there's the pin. My ball's in there. That's where I want to hit the ball within that scope. So they look and they say, okay, it's 167 feet to the pin. Okay, so somewhere in that circle is where I want to land. That's our scope. Where we want to land is what is within our legally allowable activities. So what the law allows us to do. Sometimes if you go up to a tall building or to Niagara Falls. They've also got these beautiful uh, scopes, these periscopes, and you can look through and you can see something that's far away. Makes it closer. A telescope does the same thing. Know that what you can see is just what's in that scope. Again, it demonstrates that what we're legally able to do. So now and then we will need to refer out because some of our clients would benefit from seeing a counselor, a psychotherapist, a physical therapist, a chiropractor. None of that is in the scope of our practice. May feel like we're mental health counselors, but that is not what we are. Okay. We practice within the scope of our practice, right? The scope of our practice compared to the standard. So I mentioned I worked with US Track and Field. US Track and Field had a standard to go to the Olympics. You had to meet this standard. So say you're from Azerbaijan or you're from the Ivory Coast. Very small populations, right? Even if you're the fastest person in your entire country, you have to hit the standard. I was just talking about this with a client, and I looked it up. We have the Olympics coming in 2026. Excuse me, 2028. The Olympics are coming in 2028 to Los Angeles. And I like to look at US track and field. I'm a little bit of a track geek. And right now, the US men's standard for the 800 meters. So 800 meters is twice around a normal track. And they have to do that in under 1 minute and 44 seconds, which is smoking fast. It's smoking fast. Yeah. And so 1 minute 44 is the standard for all of the men at 800 meters. That's what they have to run to even get into the Olympics. Doesn't matter who they beat in their country. The Olympics has a standard. Likewise, massage therapists, we have a standard. And here are standards of practice. There are 6 of them, and they are from the NCB-TMB, the National Certification Board of Therapeutic Massage and Bodywork. And let's just walk through them because there's some nuances to these that I want to share with you. Professionalism. Okay, be a professional. So massage therapists must provide optimal levels of therapeutic massage, demonstrating excellence in their attire, in their communication, in their treatment, and they promote health and well-being through responsible, compassionate, and respectful touch. Professionalism shows up when you are dressed appropriately. Trying to think of a time where someone didn't dress appropriately. Well, you know, and you can think of a time where maybe you attended an event and you thought it was casual, or you thought it was dressy. Uh, Either way, it's like, oops, I'm a little out of sync here. I'm a little like offbeat. We want to communicate non-verbally about our professionalism. One of the ways we communicate about our professionalism is how we dress. Also, our posture. Let's go ahead and address posture right now. Go ahead, and if you're sitting, imagine that you are, sit on your sit bones and straighten your spine. If you're not sure what straightening the spine feels like, imagine you have a string on the top of your head. A string right on the top of your head that lifts your head. I'd also like you to bring your chest, your sternum, a little bit out. Retract your shoulder blades. This is a professional, confident posture. This will not be on your MBLEX as far as posture is concerned, but I'd like you to just feel what it feels like to be in a confident posture. Chest out, shoulders back, shoulder blades back. Retract those shoulder blades. Feels a little weird, right? It feels like you're sticking your chest out. It's okay. Just be in that posture for a moment. This is a confident posture. It silently communicates. Non-verbally, you're communicating your confidence and your professionalism. You with me? All right. I want to also remind you there are 3 words that could be on your emblex. Professionalism is what we just talked about. There are 2 more, the professional and the profession. The professional is a person. You are a licensed healthcare professional. You're a person. Sometimes you can use that as an adjective as well. Be very careful if you have English as a second language. These 3 words can be a little mushy. Professionalism is your behavior. Your profession is your job. So a person is a professional who can act in a professional manner. So there's a noun and an adjective there. It can be a person or describing a person with professional. Professionalism is our behavior, and our profession is our job. All right. The standard number 2, we've got 6 of them. Hang in there. Massage therapists must comply with all your legal and ethical requirements. So, and guess whose job it is to know what those legal and ethical requirements are? Not me, not AMTA. Nope, it's yours. Yes, your responsibility to know the legal requirements in your town, your county, your state, and also in the United States. All right. That's standard number 2, legal and ethical requirements. And what is the legal and ethical requirements in your state? Well, for example, in Texas, New York, and Hawaii all have their own test. There's still 3 states without regulation. That is Kansas, Minnesota, and Wyoming, and Vermont, actually. Vermont has no regulations either, and California. So there's really 5 states. These 2 really have nothing, but in Kansas, Minnesota, and Wyoming, there's some legislation on the books. They just don't have it yet. All right. And again, whose responsibility is it to know all this? That would be yours. So some Minnesota counties do require that you take the NBLEX and pass it and get a license, but that's at the county level. Uh, in California and Vermont, in Vermont, there's nothing. In California, they're sunsetting the old organization, the California Massage Therapy Council. So that's changing as we speak. They put that forth in April of this year. Part of the reason you become alumni support is to help you figure this out when you go to get your state license. So alumni support is what happens after you pass the NBLEX. You can become a part of our community where we help you launch your massage therapy career. And New York and Hawaii don't even accept the NBLEX. They have their own tests, as does Texas. Texas accepts both their Texas test and the NBLEX. So, yeah, a moving target. Number 3, standard number 3, confidentiality. So, massage therapist respects and keeps confidential the client information and safeguards their records. Why do we do that? That is because of a law that came out in 1996 called HIPAA. And please look, it's HIPAA. So the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act. And That act said you can't share people's health information. Now, the only time you can share someone's health information is A, through if they've signed a medical release form. Yes, if they've signed a medical release form, then that allows doctors and other medical professionals to exchange information. They've given you permission. You've now become a part of an interdisciplinary team, of a medical team. You're a part of their medical team, and you're allowed to share information. Depending on what that release form says, is how much information you can share. The other time it is legally permitted to share a person's personal information is if they are going to harm a child. If they have said something on your massage table that gives you the impression they are going to harm a child, then HIPAA laws are suspended without the medical release form. Okay. Now, in some states, that's different, but hopefully you'll never be in that situation. Standard number 4, business practices. We've talked a lot about businesses today. We're about to cover a little bit more on businesses as far as employee versus independent contractor, tax forms. But the general principle here is that you need to practice with honesty, integrity, lawfulness in the business of massage. So this is guidelines to a professional practice. This is to have best practices wherever you're practicing, wherever you choose, whether that's in your home, in someone else's home, in an office, that you're using best practices. A few terms that I didn't cover later that I wanted to cover right now, that is copyright infringement, and that's using someone else's words. Now and then this comes up on the MBLEX. I know, it's weird, but they don't want you to break the law. So copyright infringement is if you copy and paste someone else's words and claim they're your own. Yeah, you can't do that with images. And that's where sometimes it does come up that, oh, I'm creating my website, I'll just steal these images. Well, you could get nailed for that because those images are someone else's intellectual property. Someone else has created it. That makes it their intellectual property. So intellectual property can be a book, can be a poem, it can be uh, photographs, it can be art, it can literally be a new invention. So if someone else has written it, if someone else has designed it, it is their intellectual property. And we're not allowed to use it. And you may have seen this if you're sharing anything on YouTube, because YouTube now and then will flag one of my videos, and they'll be you're using some music on there. You're not allowed to use it. Well, I bought the music, so I am allowed to use it. But they will flag my video and say, copyright infringement. You're using someone else's intellectual property. And I have to dispute that and say, here is my license. Here's the source of where I bought that. So surprisingly, it does come up. And it may come up on the MBLEX. Standard number 5 of 6 is roles and boundaries. Massage therapists shall adhere to ethical boundaries and stay within their professional roles to protect themselves and the client and safeguard the therapeutic relationship. We had a word about roles and boundaries earlier, right? Yep. So we know. Now, a term that comes up every now and then is permeable, semi-permeable boundaries or impermeable boundaries. Semi, someone who's saying yes and no. Impermeable, absolutely not. Permeable boundaries, I give into that all the time. So familiarize yourself with that semi-permeable, permeable, and impermeable boundaries. Three other, three other types of boundaries. And finally, the last standard. Remember, our standard, our gold standard, is the prevention of sexual misconduct. Massage therapists shall refrain from any behavior that sexualizes or appears to sexualize the client therapist relationship. As massage therapists, we recognize the intimacy of that therapeutic relationship. And it may be mistaken. It may be misunderstood by the client. And being touched may activate some desires inside a client that they might misunderstand as a sexual desire. Also, sexual desires can weaken their objectivity. Yeah. However, we know that our gold standard is to refrain from any behavior, including any language, using any words that would sexualize or appear to sexualize the client relationship. Don't have sex with your clients. Don't flirt with your clients. Don't sexualize the client therapist relationship. All right, some other vocab for you to review. Just wanted to put it up here. We'll post it as a worksheet as well when we post this recording. Yep, these are just, and this is from ELAP, from our entry-level assessment program. This is from the ELAP Massage School Curriculum, these vocab words. A few more vocab words. Again, in 90 minutes, we really don't have time to cover everything, but be familiar with the intention, the definition of these words. Finally, we are going to go over the taxes and legal forms, and we're going to just touch on the different business entities. So business practices for employees. We're going to talk about employees and independent contractors, just as a reminder. Employees have taxes taken out of their check. So employees are hired by someone else, an individual or a company. They fill out paperwork. Typically, they fill out a W-9. We'll cover that again in a minute. But employees and independent contractors fill out forms. They fill out their full Social Security number on those forms, their address. They claim either zero or one dependent. Zero gets the most taxes taken out of your check. But employees have taxes taken out of the check. And then they're sent a form, usually between January 15th and February 15th, in the early part of the year. And that form is called a W-2. On the W-2 tells the employee how much money was taken out, how much taxes were withheld from their check. Employers are required to withhold taxes, Social Security and Medicare. The nice thing about that is an employer is also responsible to match those taxes. So the employers and the employees at this writing, things are changing as we speak, but right now the employee pays 6.2%, the employer pays 6.2%. That will not be on the NBLEX. What could be on the NBLEX is the difference between an employee and an independent contractor. Let's look at the independent contractor. Independent contractors are hired by a person or a company. However, taxes are not taken out of their check. They work for an hourly rate or a day rate or a project rate. So if you come and work for me for the day, we'll pay you $100. Come in and you do seated massage for the day from noon to 5, we're going to give you $100, $150. Now, When the payment comes, it's $150. No taxes have been taken out. Once an independent contractor earns $600 from one entity, person, business, if they have earned more than $600, you have to send them a 1099, or you have to be given a 1099 to report, which demonstrates that the person that hired you has reported your income to the federal government, to the federal and state government. Okay. Independent contractors don't get a W-2. Independent contractors get a 1099. On that 1099 is not what's been taken out of their check. It's what they've been paid. There are different types of entities, business entities, that can hire independent contractors or employees. Sole proprietor. Now, let me take a step back and say these business entities are how you are going to operate as a massage therapist. One of these business entities is you. If you have not decided, if you have not changed anything, if you have not filed any paperwork, you are automatically a sole proprietor. So, sole proprietor, there's no forms to fill. You just start working, you're a sole proprietor. These other business entities, you would need to file paperwork with your state. But sole proprietor, all of the money you earn gets put on your tax return. It's all about you. You're a sole proprietor. Now, some sole proprietors decide to become a partner, and partnerships are easy to form. However, you do need to be clear on the level of ownership. Is it 50-50? Is it 51-49? Both partners are personally liable if there is a lawsuit. And during tax time, partners have to file an additional form. They have to file a Schedule K-1 because all of that business's profits are not going on to one tax return. It's going on to, if there's two partners, they're going on to two tax returns. Those losses are not going on to one tax return. It's you and your partner or partners. So that partnership agreement will determine how much of the losses or the profits goes onto your personal tax return, and that's done through a Schedule K-1. This question has come up on the NBLEX, you guys. Crazy, I know. But a Schedule K-1 is tied directly to partnerships. Let's talk about the limited liability company, the LLC. This requires a tax form, a state tax form. Now they're taxed just like a sole proprietorship, but the LLC is formed by filing a report with your state. Currently, I have Jodi Scholes LLC, and that protects your personal assets from your business assets. Business assets are put in the Jodi Scholes LLC compared to Jodi Scholes LLC pays Jodi Scholes. It's a legal way to protect your personal assets. So if you and your husband own a home, or you and your wife own property, vacation property, it would be wise to ask an accountant, would it be good to form an LLC to protect your personal assets? However, tax-wise, exactly the same. All the profits from my LLC, Jodi Scholes LLC, go right onto my personal tax return. The final two business entities I want to mention are the S Corp and the C Corp. S, all right, we're going to use some visuals here. S, that is the self. S stands for the self. This is an independent organization, that the S corp is like its own self. Um, the owner of the S corp reports that business's profits or loss on their self's tax return. So the S corp is an independent legal tax structure, but all of those profits and losses go onto the owner's tax return. Compared to the C corp stands alone. It's an independent, the C corp is an independent legal and tax structure, but it is taxed. The C corp itself pays taxes and can have shareholders. There's no limit on the number of shareholders. It doesn't have to have shareholders. It does have to have an annual meeting. Both have to hold an annual meeting, even if it's not anything but, "Oh, okay, this is, I'm meeting with me, myself, and I." But the C corp files its own tax return. So if you have a company called, let's see, Gold Standard Massage Therapy, and it's a C corp. So if I owned that, it would be Jodi Skulls would file a tax return. Gold Standard Massage Therapy would file its own tax return. So that's why accountants are important. They advise you on which type of entity is going to serve you best from a tax point of view. Most massage therapists, sole proprietors, LLCs. If you're going to grow that company, have employees, have people working for you, that's when it's good to look at the S Corp or the C Corp formation. But the big difference between an S Corp and a C Corp, S Corp, it goes on an S Corp goes on the owner's tax return, and a C Corp files its own gold standard massage therapy, files its own tax return, has its own tax ID number. Okay. All right, so these are the three: sole proprietor, partnership, limited liability company, the LLC, S Corp and C Corp. The tax forms as a review. The sole proprietor gets a 1099. The LLC also issues 1099s and may receive a 1099, even if you are an LLC. Employees get a W-2. Partnerships have to file a K-1. And then finally, W-9. W-9 I mentioned briefly, and that's what you fill out when you become an independent contractor or you become an employee. And all employee forms get your full Social Security number. There was a question on my practice exam that asked, oh, when you fill out a form for your new employer, do you give them only the last four digits of your social? Mm-mm-mm-mm. You're required to give them your full social and a mailing address. Oh, two other words I wanted you to know because these have come up again on the MBLEX. Tax evasion and tax avoidance. Very different phrases. Tax evasion is the intentional concealing of income. So it says the intentional deception of the government through means such as hiding money, concealing money, misreporting money, not reporting all of your income, or failure to file. That if you just don't file taxes, that's considered tax evasion. Yeah. So, uh, so if you are in a position right now where you have not filed taxes or you're not up to date, please seek the counsel of a free financial planner, a free accountant. And you can find resources like this for small business in your town. Uh, it is good to talk to somebody about, it's good to talk to somebody about taxes. because taxes don't go away. No, taxes are here to stay. So good to just get yourself straight. Who knows what's coming in the future? For right now, please at least identify what you would need to do to get straight if you haven't filed your taxes. The other term I want to share with you is tax avoidance. Different phrase. So, tax avoidance is actually something you pay your accountant for. You help them to avoid taxes. So, being aware of tax laws can help you take advantage of tax breaks and legally minimize your tax liabilities. Sometimes this is a positive thing. A lot of times, this is a positive thing. And it's something you can ask your accountant about or ask your financial planner about. I would like to avoid paying high taxes. How can I legally do that? It's a fair question, right? It's called tax avoidance. Yay! We're done with the content. That's ethics, boundaries, laws, and regulations. Nice work. Okay, ready for some dissecting questions? All right, let's do it. Question number 1. We have 10. Question number 1. Year-end wage and tax statement to submit with individual's tax return for any independent contractor wages in excess of $600, equivalent to a W-2 form. I'm going to throw the word in what is. What is a year-end wage and tax statement to submit with an individual's tax return for any independent contractor wages in excess of $600, equivalent to a W-2? Is it A, a W-2, B, 1099, C, pay stub, D, annual report? And how we do things around here is I'm going to give you a cue to go ahead and put your answers in the chat. So you're going to put your answers in the chat after I say, so we're going to read the question, read the answers, going to eliminate one wrong answer, and then you can put your answer when I say 3, 2, 1, go. So let's eliminate a wrong answer. A year-end wage and tax statement is not a pay stub. And I want to give you a little hint on this. You could go ahead and put each of these words at the front of this sentence to see if it fits. For example, a pay stub is a year-end wage and tax statement to submit with individuals. No, that doesn't fit. See how I did that? I put it in the front. Is the best answer, what is the equivalent to a W-2 form? Well, guess what? It's not that. Okay, so the year-end wage and tax statement, submit with individual's tax return for any independent contractor wages in excess of $600, equivalent to a W-2 form. 3, 2, 1, go. Best guess. Yes. Ms. Dora, yes. Edgar. Yes, Ms. V. Nana, yeah. Raven, yes. Lisha, yes. Therese, yes. Hi. Maria, yes. Good. Best answer? Boom. 1099. You've got to hear the whole thing. There needs to be lots of information that goes into the brain. Sometimes you don't need all that information. Best answer 1099. That is a tax statement for independent contractor wages in excess of $600. If you are an independent contractor who earns more than $600, you get a 1099. It is the equivalent of a W-2 form for independent contractors. Next question. A female client says, a female client reminds you of your favorite aunt. You always went to ball games with your aunt. You have 2 free tickets to a ball game, and you feel a strong urge to ask her if she likes baseball. What is this an example of? A, boundary crossing. B, boundary violation. C, countertransference. D, transference. A female aunt reminds you of your favorite aunt. You always went to baseball games with your aunt. You have 2 free tickets to the baseball game, and you feel a strong urge to ask her if she likes baseball. What is this an example of? A, boundary crossing. B, boundary violation. C, countertransference. D, transference. Let's eliminate a wrong answer. You haven't done anything, so it's not a boundary violation. You haven't done anything, so it's not a boundary violation. 3, 2, 1, go. Yes, Dora. Amy and Maria nailed it. Keisha, yep. Ms. V, yep. Nana, choose. Alicia, yep. All right. Best answer. Boom. Counter transference. Why is it counter transference? A female client reminds you, you always went to baseball games with your aunt. You have free tickets to the ball game, and you feel a strong urge to ask her. You as the therapist. That's counter transference all day. Next question. Year-end wage and tax statement to submit with individuals, tax return, equivalent to a W-2 form for a member of a business partnership in a company. Woo! A year-end wage and tax statement to submit with individual tax returns, equivalent to a W-2 for a member of a business partnership in a company. Is it A, a W-2, B, 1099, C, K-1, D, annual bank statement? These are tricky. These come up on the NBLEX. Just like you need to know your state and county and town laws and regulation, you are responsible to know what forms you need to fill out or need to have. Let's eliminate a wrong answer. A annual bank statement is not a year-end wage and tax statement to submit with the tax return. Your accountant might want your annual bank statements. 3, 2, 1, go. Nana, yes. Yes, Dora. Amy and Edgar, yep. Lisa, yep. Marie and Therese, good. Samsung's chiming in. You got it. Keisha, yep. Ms. V, good. Raven, yep. Lek, yay! Yes. Has to do specifically with a partnership. Boom. K1. So the K1 splits it. Says, okay, which partner is responsible for this 49%? Which partner is responsible for this 51%? Let's go. Confidentiality is a requirement placed on the therapist that restricts the volunteering of information obtained in a therapeutic relationship. This is a blank requirement. Tough one. Is it? Well, let's read through it again. Confidentiality is a requirement placed on the therapist that restricts volunteering information obtained in a therapeutic relationship. This is a blank requirement. Is it A, ethical, B, legal, or C, legal and ethical? We're going to get rid of one wrong answer. Do you know the answer we can get rid of right away? It's not only a blank requirement. Boom. It's not only an ethical requirement. Is it even an ethical requirement? Your choice. 3, 2, 1, go. Best answer. Zoom user. Yes. Amy and Edgar. Therese, yes. Keisha, you nailed it. Raven and Samsung, yes. Dora, Maria, Lek, yes. Nana, good. Miss V, uh-huh, yes. Boom. It's a legal and ethical requirement. So if you said legal requirement, you are correct, but it's a legal and ethical requirement. So technically, this is a question with three right answers. We have to find the best answer. Okay. Tricky, tricky. Number 5. A required document to be filled out by an independent contractor to provide employers with Social Security number so they can issue you a 1099. A required document to be filled out by independent contractors provided to the employers with your Social Security number so the employer can issue you a 1099. Is that a W-2, an I-9, a W-9, or power of attorney? Let's get rid of one wrong answer, shall we? The required document to be filled out by independent contractors to provide employers with your Social Security number so they can issue you a 1099. 3, 2, 1, go. Best answer. Zoom user. Yes. Edgar and Amy, you got it. Doris, you got it. Dora. Lek, yes. Hey guys. Best answer? W9. A W9. Although, Tara, would you look up what an I-9 is? Because that is a document, but I don't think it's required. This is a little bit, because it looks the same. It was tricky, but the one we talked about today is a W-9. I think an I-9 is if you are if you have a green card. Let's take a peek. Maybe somebody knows that. Yeah, let's compare and contrast the W-9 to the I-9. 6. All right. Individuals who provide services or perform activities for a company, but like room renters, are not employees of the company. Individuals who provide services or perform activities for a company, but like room renters, are not employees of the company. Are they A, contracts, B, employers, C, seasonal help, D, independent contractors? Go ahead and read through that question again on your own. Individuals who provide services for the company, but like room renters, aren't employees of the company. Let's get rid of one wrong answer. Not employers. Okay. Individuals who perform services or provide services or perform activities for the companies, but like room renters, are not employees of the company. 3, 2, 1, go. Best answer. Best answer. Amy and Zoom user. Lek and Edgar, yes. Therese and Dora, yes. Ms. V and Keisha, yes. Samsung and Lisha, yes. Raven and Nana, yup. Good. Best answer, independent contractors. Yes. Could be seasonal help, could be a contract, but best answer, independent contractors. Hang in there, guys. Home stretch. Being aware of tax laws can help you take advantage of tax breaks and illegally minimize your tax liabilities. This is known as what? Being aware of tax laws can help you take advantage of tax breaks and legally minimize your tax liabilities. This is known as A, tax evasion, B, tax avoidance, C, legal entities, D, sole proprietorship. We'll eliminate one wrong answer. It's not a sole proprietorship. If you were paying attention, you may know this. 3, 2, 1, go. Nana says, yeah, Nana and Amy, yep. Therese and Edgar. Alicia and Maria, yes. Keisha and Raven, yes. Dora and Miss V and Lek, got it. Samsung and Zoom users, you got it. Boom, best answer, tax avoidance. Good, everybody got the right answer on that. Pew, high five. That was a high five. 8. Going to happy hour with a client would be considered a what? A. A boundary crossing. B. Only okay if you knew them before. C. Boundary violation. D. Transference. Going to happy hour with a client would be considered a what? Let's get rid of one wrong answer. Not transference. Going to happy hour with a client would be considered A, a boundary crossing, B, only okay if you knew them before, C, a boundary violation. 3, 2, 1, go. Leck and Alicia, yes. Dora and Therese, yes. Raven, yes. Good. All right. Best answer. Remember, this is the Emblex. Ooh, we got one more sneaking in. Best answer for the Emblex? Boundary violation. What? Why? It's not always a boundary violation on the Emblex. Just saying. You got to be the most conservative. We have to assume they haven't met them before. Look, there's 3 right answers there. It is a boundary crossing. It is only okay if you knew them before. But at face value, it is a boundary violation. Next question. Your colleague shows up to work wearing jeans with rips in them. Oh. Work policy states no jeans. What standard of practice are they violating? A. Professionalism. B. Legal and ethical requirements. C. Business practices. D. Rules and boundaries. Your colleague shows up to work wearing jeans with rips in them. Work policies state no jeans. What standard of practice are they violating? Let's get rid of one wrong answer. It's not rules and boundaries. What standard of practice? If there's a work policy, no jeans. 3, 2, 1, go. Yes, Maria and Nana. Ooh, good. I'm glad you got that. Zoom and Edgar, you got it. Amy and Leisha, yes. Alec, yes. The Samsung and Miss V got it. Good. Raven got it. Yes. Best answer. Ooh, one more. Hang on. Dora nailed it. Yes. Best answer, professionalism. Wait a minute. It's the policy. That's business practices, right? Yeah, if you want to extrapolate it that way. Yeah. Business practices is way bigger than that, though. And it's really not the best fit. Professionalism is how you show up. Wearing jeans, remember, that's sending a silent message. It's making a first impression about the level of your professionalism. Yeah. And in my opinion, it's not best business practices. And yes, they are violating a work policy. But better answer, professionalism. Final question. The range of activities that can legally be performed within a particular health occupation is called what? The range of activities that can legally be performed within a particular health occupation is called what? A, standards of practice. B, policies and procedures. C, standard of care. D, scope of practice. We'll eliminate one wrong answer. It's not our policies and procedures. The range of activities that can legally be performed within a particular health occupation is called what? 3, 2, 1, go. Good, Amy. Dora and Therese, yep. Keisha and Nana, Raven and Leisha, yes. Lek and Samsung, yes, yes, yes. Best answer, boom, scope of practice. Yes, very good. Scope of practice. Oh, I know, there were people who wanted to say here. but the range of activities, the range, the scope. Remember that golf uh, scope? Showed you the range, right? The range of activities that can be legally performed. Legally performed. All right. Good job. Yay. Nice work. So thanks for hanging in there through some tough material. Yeah. So now, what do you do with this brand new knowledge? I would love it for you to go and apply it to the simulation exam. Bravo! You hung in there. And look, guys, it's this isn't an easy topic, right? It goes all over the board. So go while this is fresh in your mind and take a simulation exam. We've got two different types of practice exams, remember. One gives you immediate feedback. The second simulates the MBLEX. So immediate feedback is a learning tool. It helps you to learn as you go along. But if you are preparing, if you're ready to prepare and see where you're at when it comes to the MBLEX, take the simulation exam. No feedback, no skipping questions, no going back and changing your answers, no looking up stuff. Go apply what we've just done. Take a practice exam. Yeah, see how it feels. Thanks so much for putting the time in. This is a tough test and it takes some energy. So thanks so much for taking your time. My name again is Jodi Scholes. I'm your instructor for the MBLEX review course, and I'll see you again here next week.